Good day, everyone. Welcome to Learning with Sonwa. This is where we take one concept, one idea, one word at a time. We think about this, what it is in English, and we translate it into isiXhosa. We try and think about it in isiXhosa, what it might mean or further mean. And I ask you please in the comment section below to please translate this word for me, for us, into German. What is the German equivalent of this word? And today's concept, today's word is insider. Insider. To be an insider in something, to be an insider in a story, an insider in a narrative, an insider in a setting. What it is to be an insider. So a Xhosa word for that is Ngaphakathi, like Ngaphakathi of something, like Ngaphakathi, Ndingaphakathi, like Ndingaphakathi endlini. At the moment, I'm inside the house, Ndingaphakathi endlini. I'm looking through the window, I'm seeing the outside, there's beautiful sun. It's not a typical winter day today in South Africa. We are in the middle of winter, but the sun is out today. The sky is quite blue. So we hope that it stays this way for a good part of the day. But it might change later to something else. This is Cape Town, where I'm coming from. So this is episode 1. 2. Insider Ngaphakathi. What is that in German? What does the word mean in German? What is the word for insider in German? Please share it with me. And I think before we go further, I have maybe a little story that I can share with you. Maybe it'll help us together to illustrate together what we are talking about today. The concept of the idea of being an insider in something. Babalwa is standing in front of people. Her voice is choking, her knees are buckling, there's a wall of tears building in her eyes. She can't really continue, she can't speak anymore. But she wants to, but she's scared, she's nervous now. She started off well, but something happened. And the girls in the corner are still continuing with that. They're going, ew, when she's presenting. What is she presenting about? She's presenting about porridge that she really likes, that her grandmother used to make. This maize meal porridge that she's presenting about. She's talking about this idea, like waking up in the morning, the fire is going in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, one of the provinces of South Africa. The granny has made fire outside, and she made this porridge for her before she left for school. This is her grandmother making the porridge. But girls in her class find this very funny, they've never had this porridge before, and they don't think that it's tasty, and they show it by telling her and making these nasty signs while she's trying to present in front of the class. The teacher is not quite in full control of this group of girls who make these noises in the corner. And so the teacher is not really in full control of this situation. Babala is now thinking of sitting down. She's really nervous, the tears are rolling down. And Chase gets up, the guy called Chase, he gets up and he goes, bangs on the table, says, let her finish, let her speak, give her a chance to speak. And you really he's passionate about stopping this injustice that he's seeing, that he's observing. For the purpose of this story, it's very important to say that Chase is a white young man who grew up in suburbia of Cape Town. Babalwa is now in a school in Cape Town, a multiracial school in Cape Town. And Chase manages to stop this group of girls who are making Babalwa feel this way and quiet in the room. And then Babalwa sort of continues to tell the story, and she tells the story not quite with the same passion that she had at the beginning, but she manages to tell to do her presentation to the end. It's Chase's turn to speak directly after Babalwa, and Chase gets up and says, actually, I've had this porridge. You know who made it for me? He changes. This was not his original topic, Chase. Now he changes now to do a presentation that's in response of what he just saw. So he's speaking off the cuff, you know, and then he says, actually, I've had this porridge. I've had this porridge before. Do you know who made it for me? It was a woman, our domestic worker, who literally raised me. This woman negotiated, came from the township in the early hours of the morning before my mother left for work. At 7 o'clock every day, Mama was there. She is my mother. She raised me. She made me this maize meal porridge most mornings, and I really enjoyed it. And she put me on her back while she was cleaning the house. Every day. When I grew a little older, went to school, when I came back from school, lunch was prepared by who? By this lady who came from the township, who came from a house that I've never been to. Now Chase is narrating, the room is quiet. Chase is narrating this story, you know, and I'm gonna stop there and ask, what do you think so far about this story? What do you think about the worlds of Babalwa and Chase? What do you think about these worlds? What do you think about the world of these girls in the corner who were making those horrible noises? What do you think about that? What do you think? Because Chase is inside a story, is inside a narrative. Babalwa is inside a story, she's inside a context, and these girls are also inside a story, inside a context. Now, I wouldn't suggest that we quickly say those girls are wrong and we judge and everything. Remember our previous episode where we spoke about judging. We're trying to understand where all of these people come from. So Ngaphakathi, because they are all insiders to something. That group of girls is an insider to that moment that they've created there. Babalwa is an insider to her story, to her lived realities. And Chase is also an insider to his lived realities. Now, Babalwa's mother didn't raise her, right? When she left the Eastern Cape, being raised by her grandmother, she went to Cape Town and stayed with uncles and aunts and different people. Her mother is the mother who raised Chase, right? Her mother negotiated the township setting. Now in South Africa, the township is it's an area, it's a settlement that is sometimes built as built infrastructure under like piped water, asphalt tarred roads, built houses, but also the township has an informal settlement that is often attached to it because of migration and different things. So Babalwa comes from that informal settlement. Now that informal settlement attached to the township doesn't have roads. There are shared communal toilets for everyone, so she easily walked 50 meters if she needed to relieve herself to the nearest toilet. There's no piped water into the houses. There's often no electricity, or in some instances illegal connections of electricity. But there's also a vibe sometimes in these areas. There's an uncle there who's getting ready to go to church, and off he goes to church. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he works during the week, and he does church things during the weekend. There's another uncle there who drinks on weekends, and he goes to some mashonisa, the loan shark, the people who borrow people money and charge like 80% interest. You know, he's there, he's drinking his beer. The young boys playing soccer with a small tennis ball, playing here in this sandy area. So you get the picture. The houses are not brick and mortar. The houses are shacks. But these are people's homes. These are people's homes, and there are stories that come from these homes. And Babalwa's is one of the stories that come from these homes. Babalwa's mother left this area every day to go to a suburb nearby to work there. So she never had the chance to cook for Babalwa and all of those things. So she leaves the area. She's been robbed a couple of times because yes, it's a reality that living with such desperation, sometimes people resort to ways that are not quite legal to get money, ways that are just wrong. It's wrong to rob people. So she has been a victim of that kind of violence. Babalwa's mother heading to Chase's house where she works, where she'll cook for Chase, where she'll do all of those things. Now, here we're not judging to say, oh, this story is wrong, that is right, this person, this. No, we're trying to find out how can we best understand each other's worlds. How can Chase work with Babalwa and that group of girls and the teacher and everyone around them to say that we all come from a context, we all come from a setting. How do we bridge those gaps? How do we create bridges between ourselves and hold them and hold these spaces for each other where we are able to listen without judging. So Chase does come up as a hero in this story, but is he? I'll let you be the judge. And those girls also get to learn something, because after Chase speaks, then they open up more to Babalwa to learn about her world and where she comes from. So being an insider, Ngaphakathi, insider. So sometimes when we are insiders to something, you're an insider, you're a soccer fan, you're an insider in this group of people who love soccer and will talk only about soccer and all these things and will go to every match of their favorite team. You're an insider in that setting. You know, or living in a residential area. We live here, we know when the dirt pickup trucks come. We kind of know who's walking these streets. We kind of know the cars, like who owns that red car in the corner there, who owns that green car. We know the families. We're a closely knit community sometimes, or we know our setting. So we are an insider to this setting. A new person who comes from the outside will have to come and learn what the daily life is like in this setting. Now, a person who's never lived in a township, who's never lived in an informal settlement, and probably will never ever get to live in an informal settlement. What is the best thing to do? I think one of the best things to do would be to listen to people who come from an informal settlement. Listen to the people narrate their stories and give each other a chance. The person who was raised in a village or in a suburb, that person also gets an equal opportunity to present and talk about how they grew up and what they know and those different things. So when we have this exchange of ideas, exchange of what we believe deeply, exchange of histories, exchange of faiths, exchange of changes of traditions, exchanges of different things, when we have that is when we start to humanize each other. We start to see each other as people. We start to see each other with a better understanding of what our everyday habits mean, what our feelings, what our values are, you know, what the choices that we make, what are they influenced by? The choices that we make every day, what are they influenced about? Because sometimes the choices can be influenced by what you know, by how you've been socialized, but by how you've, how you were raised, the choices about money, choices about love, choices about careers, choices about different things are influenced by where we come from. How do we take a step back and say, how do I remove myself from my context in thinking and take a different position and try and observe what I'm doing? How can I change it? You know, people my age, what are they doing in different parts of the world? Are they doing exactly what I'm doing? You know, how are they negotiating school? How are they negotiating life post-school? How are they negotiating university, tertiary? How are they negotiating different things? How are they negotiating relationships? You know, how are they negotiating emotions and these different points? How are they negotiating different viewpoints that they come across? You know, how are they negotiating outsiders looking into their lives? You know, how are they negotiating themselves when they are outsiders looking into other people's lives? You know, do they take a step back and pause and say, how can we do this differently? How can we understand the symbols, you know, these personal deep stories of people? How can we understand the meaning making of people, the meaning that people have behind certain things? Babalwa has this wonderful experience of a maize meal porridge. That is her experience. You know, the porridge symbolizes a time in her life, but at the same time, that porridge, that conversation about a porridge, that presentation about a maize meal porridge is something else to that group of girls who who had never heard of this thing, and when they saw the pictures, they thought, yeah, this is not something that should be eaten. Yet I've had maize meal porridge, for instance. It's absolutely amazing. Chase comes up and says, let her finish, let her speak. I also have experience about this maize porridge. Guess who made it for me? It's our domestic worker. You know, so how do we take people's real stories and keep a space for them so that they're able to tell their stories without feeling judged, without feeling that they are pressed some way, without feeling that a person who's looking from the outside will immediately think this is nasty, this is bad, and therefore I should not be. You know, how do we respect each other's lived truths more? How do we respect each other's lived realities more? How do we create a space for each other to hear each other without judging? How do we create spaces where people can live their full identities around us without feeling that they'll be shackled, or there are parts of their identity that they should not show because here we do things this way? For instance, how do we hold that space? How do we give different voices a space to shine, and a space to speak, and a space to narrate where they come from? I think listening carefully to each other is very important. So how have you practiced listening carefully to a person you don't know? How will you practice listening carefully to a person you don't know? How will how would you like to be listened to carefully? Like, if you were telling me your story about your life, what would you expect from me? Would you expect me to laugh? Would you expect me to make nasty sounds? Would you expect me to listen and be curious and ask questions about certain parts of your narration of your story? So, because I'm not an insider, perhaps in a particular aspect of your life, I'm not an insider. An insider. We said insider. Ngaphakathi, to be ngaphakathi, ndingaphakathi, ndingowalapha, ndingaphakathi in a story. What is that in German? So please write it in the comment section below and use the cell phone number to interact directly with me. This has been Learning with Sonwa. Until next time, bye-bye.